The glass corridor of the Intergalactic Vanguard Academy stretched like a frozen river beneath three moons, each one casting shadows that danced across the faces of 100 different species. They stood in perfect formation, scales gleaming, fur bristling, translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent anxiety. All of them waiting. All of them trying not to think about what lay beyond the reinforced steel door at the corridor's end. Clara Hayes stood among them, conspicuously small at 5'5", conspicuously pink-skinned, conspicuously calm. Where others shifted weight from tentacle to claw to hoof, she remained still as stone, her breathing so controlled it could have been mistaken for meditation. The human, the only human, the anomaly that shouldn't have made it past the first week of training. Fear assessment begins in 2 minutes. Commander Rotok's voice scraped through the air like gravel over glass. The Korthanian officer stood 8 feet tall, his exoskeleton the color of dried blood. 4 arms crossed in what his species considered a gesture of supreme authority. His compound eyes fixed on Clara with undisguised contempt. For those requiring reminder, you will enter the chamber one at a time. You will face the Mournfang for 60 seconds. You will not be rescued if you fail to defend yourself. Medical teams are standing by for the inevitable casualties. A ripple of nervous energy passed through the ranks. Someone behind Clara, probably one of the Zalathi twins, made a sound between a whimper and a prayer. The Mournfang, Rotok continued, his mandibles clicking with what might have been pleasure, has been our most effective assessment tool for 3 decades. It has broken the spirits of over 400 candidates. It has hospitalized 89. It has killed 6. His eyes found Clara again. Though I suspect today might add to that particular statistic. Clara's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Commander, just to clarify, we're meant to survive 60 seconds with a creature that's killed trained soldiers. The corridor fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the Academy's life support systems seemed to pause. Rotok's exoskeleton plates shifted, a sign of irritation. Survival is not the primary objective. Human. The test reveals your true nature under extreme duress. Some freeze, some flee, some fight. All reveal who they truly are when death breathes down their neck. And if someone doesn't consider it death, just another predator. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several cadets turned to stare at Clara, their expressions ranging from awe to horror to something approaching pity. There is no, just another predator when it comes to the Mournfang, Rotok said slowly, as if explaining to a particularly dim child. It is 4 meters of engineered killing instinct. Its claws can shred starship hull plating. Its teeth contain a paralytic venom that liquefies nervous systems. It has hunted on 12 different worlds and never failed to claim its prey. Clara nodded thoughtfully. Sounds like a Tuesday on Earth. Someone laughed a sharp, nervous bark that cut off immediately. It was Tarek Vul, all 7 feet of gray-skinned, 4-eyed anxiety. He caught Clara's glance and looked away quickly, his secondary arms wrapping around his torso in a self-soothing gesture. The memory hit Clara without warning, as it always did when she stood in these sterile corridors. Marcus, her brother, standing in this same spot 2 years ago. Marcus, who'd sent her one last message before his training accident. Marcus, whose body had been returned to Earth in a sealed casket with documentation so heavily redacted it looked like abstract art. I made you a promise, she whispered, too low for anyone but herself to hear. Today I keep it. The steel door groaned open, revealing a chamber beyond that seemed to swallow light. The smell that rolled out was primal musk and metal and something else. Something that triggered the deepest parts of the brain that remembered when humans were prey. First candidate, Rotok announced, consulting his datapad with theatrical slowness. Gorvak Thane, a Bendrosian, near the front all muscle and bravado, until now took a step backward instead of forward. His 3 hearts were beating so hard they were visible through his transparent chest cavity. I withdraw from the assessment, Gorvak stammered. Withdrawal is noted, Ratok said, his tone suggesting this was exactly what he'd expected. Automatic expulsion from the program. Next candidate. I'll go first. Clara stepped forward before Ratok could finish. The commander's compound eyes refracted her image 1,000 times, each one showing a small human woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing the standard-issue training suit that looked like pajamas compared to the natural armor and weapons of her fellow cadets. The order has been established. Human, you will wait your... With respect. Commander, I'm volunteering. Unless the mighty intergalactic vanguard is afraid to let Earth's representative show how it's done. The provocation was calculated, delivered with just enough innocence to make it deniable. Ratok's exoskeleton darkened, a flush of anger that he couldn't quite suppress. Very well, he said, each word dripping with anticipation. The human wishes to demonstrate Earth's capabilities. Enter the chamber. Clara walked forward, passing through the ranks of her fellow cadets. Lysa Morin, whose translucent body showed her triple helix nervous system glowing like fiber optics, reached out a tendril. Clara, this is not wise. The Mournfang is a predator, Clara finished. And I've been studying predators my whole life. It was true, though not the whole truth. Before the Academy, before Marcus died, Clara had spent 8 years in Earth's remaining wilderness preserves, researching the hunting patterns of the last great predators. Tigers, bears, the few remaining great whites. She'd learned to read their body language, to understand the moment when aggression turned to uncertainty, when dominance became doubt. But that wasn't why she was here. She was here because Marcus had been murdered, and the Mournfang was the key to proving it. The chamber door sealed behind her with a sound like a tomb closing. Darkness pressed in from all sides, broken only by thin strips of bioluminescent panels that provided just enough light to see movement, but not detail. The floor was soft, covered in something that might have been sand, or might have been the ground bones of previous contestants. Clara stood in the center of the chamber and waited. Her heartbeat was steady, 62 beats per minute. Her breathing was controlled, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Her muscles were relaxed but ready. The growl, when it came, seemed to originate from everywhere and nowhere. It was a sound that bypassed the ears and went straight to the spine, a frequency that announced you are prey, and you are already dead. Clara smiled, a real smile this time. Hello, beautiful, she said to the darkness. I've been waiting to meet you. The observation deck erupted in chaos the moment Clara's chamber door sealed. 100 different species pressed against the reinforced transparasteel, their various optical organs straining to see through the deliberate shadows of the fear assessment chamber. The viewing screens flickered to life, showing thermal readings, heart rate monitors, and neural activity scanners all focused on the small human figure standing motionless in the center. 60 seconds, someone whispered. She just has to last 60 seconds. Commander Ratok stood apart from the crowd, his forearms operating a control panel with practiced efficiency. His compound eyes never left Clara's heat signature on the screen. Begin recording. Full spectrum analysis. I want every microsecond documented. The first attack came from above. The Mournfang dropped from the ceiling like a nightmare made flesh. 4 meters of rippling muscle and bioengineered death. Its impact cracked the floor, sending vibrations through the entire chamber. Clara didn't flinch. She stepped backward once, twice, maintaining distance while her eyes tracked the creature's movement. Fascinating skeletal structure. Her voice came through the audio feed, conversational and calm. The joint configuration suggests both quadrupedal and bipedal locomotion. Evolutionary impossible unless artificially designed. The Mournfang's head snapped toward her, rows of teeth catching the bioluminescent glow. It was built like a fusion between a cave bear and a praying mantis, covered in scales that shifted color with each movement. Its 6 eyes, arranged in a perfect hunting configuration, 2 for distance, 2 for periphery, 2 for tracking movement in absolute darkness. It lunged. Clara rolled left, using the momentum to come up in a crouch. The Mournfang's claws gouged trenches in the floor where she'd been standing. Predictable attack pattern. Ambush predator, not pursuit. You're used to prey that freezes. In the observation deck, Tarek Vol's 4 eyes were wide with disbelief. She's analyzing it during the test. Humans. Lisa Morin's translucent form pulsed with curiosity. I've been researching them. They have a history of turning predators into companions, wolves into dogs, wild cats into pets. This is not a pet, Ratok snarled. But there was something uncertain in his tone now. The Mournfang circled Clara, its movement liquid and wrong, joints bending in ways that defied normal anatomy. She matched its pace, always keeping her body angled, never presenting her back or sides. When it feinted left, she shifted right. When it rose on its hind legs to intimidate, she actually took a step forward. "You're beautiful," Clara said, and she seemed to mean it. Someone spent decades perfecting you, genes splicing from at least 4 different apex predators. But they made a mistake. The creature's head tilted, an oddly intelligent gesture. They gave you intelligence, just enough to recognize patterns, just enough to remember. The Mournfang attacked again, faster this time, using its tail as a whip while its claws came from the opposite direction. Clara dropped flat, the tail passing inches over her head, then pushed up with her hands, launching herself backward as the claws swept through empty air. 40 seconds remaining, the automated system announced. In the observation deck, the earlier volunteers who'd withdrawn were watching in stunned silence. Gorvak Tain, the Bendrosian who'd refused to enter, was trembling. "How is she still alive?" "She's not just alive," Lisa observed, her neural patterns flashing rapidly. "She's teaching it." It was true. With each exchange, Clara was establishing boundaries, showing the Mournfang that she wasn't typical prey. She wasn't running. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't even breathing hard. The next attack didn't come. The Mournfang stood at the far end of the chamber, its 6 eyes fixed on Clara. Its tail, which had been lashing like an agitated cat's, slowly stilled. The 2 beings regarded each other across the shadowed space. "You've met humans before," Clara said softly. "Haven't you?" The creature's head pulled back slightly. In the observation deck, Ratok's fingers paused over his controls. 20 seconds remaining. Clara did something that made everyone in the observation deck gasp. She sat down, cross-legged, in the middle of the chamber. The universal gesture of vulnerability, the position that exposed every vital organ, eliminated any chance of quick escape. The Mournfang took a step forward, then another. Its massive head lowered, nostrils flaring as it scented the air around her. Clara remained perfectly still, her eyes locked on the creature's primary pair. "You remember," she whispered. "You remember someone who looked like me. Someone who shouldn't have died here." 10 seconds remaining. The Mournfang was close enough now that its breath stirred Clara's hair. Close enough that one snap of its jaws could remove her head. Close enough that she could see the scars on its face, old scars, precisely placed, forming a pattern that looked almost like... 5 seconds. Clara slowly raised her hand. 4. The Mournfang didn't move. 3. Her fingers were inches from its face. 2. Contact. 1. The chamber lights blazed to full power, the sudden illumination causing everyone to squint. The Mournfang jerked backward, a sound somewhere between a roar and a whine escaping its throat. It retreated to the far corner of the chamber, head low, eyes still fixed on Clara. "Time," the automated system announced. "Test complete." The exit door hissed open. Clara stood slowly, deliberately, never turning her back on the creature. As she walked toward the exit, she spoke one more time, too low for the audio feeds to catch. "I know what you did to Marcus, and I know you remember." She emerged into the corridor, to absolute silence. 100 candidates stared at her, their expressions ranging from awe to fear to something that might have been reverence. Clara walked through them, past them, and stopped directly in front of Commander Ratok. "Your turn," she said simply. The commander's exoskeleton rippled with barely controlled emotion. "The test is pass or fail. You passed. Barely." "Barely," Tarek Vul found his voice, all 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "She sat down, she touched it, she survived," Ratok cut him off. "Nothing more. Next candidate." But nobody moved. They were all still staring at Clara, who was now examining her hand, the one that had touched the Mournfang with curious intensity. "It's been fed recently," she announced to no one in particular. Within the last 6 hours, the scent of blood was fresh, but not from hunger. Someone gave it a fresh kill before the test. Why would you feed a predator before using it to test fear responses, unless... She looked up at Ratok. "Unless you wanted it aggressive but not hungry. Violent, but not desperate. You're not testing our response to a predator. You're testing our response to cruelty." The accusation hung heavy in the air. Several candidates shifted uncomfortably, beginning to understand the implications. "The next candidate will enter immediately." Ratok's voice was sharp enough to cut steel. "Or face automatic expulsion." "I'll go." Lysa Morin's translucent form rippled forward. "But first, I want to know something." She turned to Clara. "What did you mean when you said Earth taught you not to fear predators?" Clara's smile was sharp as broken glass. "I didn't say Earth taught me not to fear them. Earth taught me to understand them. There's a difference." She paused at the edge of the observation deck. "On Earth, we had a saying, 'It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.' But we had another saying too." "Which was?" Tarek asked, leaning forward despite himself. "Every dog remembers the hand that beat it." Clara's eyes found Ratok again. "And some of them wait years for revenge." She walked away then, leaving a corridor full of aliens reconsidering everything they thought they knew about humans, about predators, and about the real purpose of the fear assessment chamber. Behind the reinforced transparasteel, the Mournfang remained in its corner, 6 eyes tracking Clara's departure. For the first time in 30 years, it didn't rush to attack when the next candidate entered. It was too busy remembering. The mess hall that evening was divided into 2 distinct groups, those who wanted to sit near Clara Hayes, and those who wanted to sit as far from her as possible. She had chosen a corner table, methodically eating the protein paste that passed for food while making notes on a datapad. Every few seconds, someone would whisper her name, followed by the human who tamed the Mournfang, or the one who made it remember. Lysa Morin approached first, her translucent form shimmering with nervous energy. She had survived her own test barely. The recording showed her using her species' ability to become nearly invisible, confusing the Mournfang's visual tracking long enough for the timer to expire. But she hadn't walked away unmarked. 3 parallel gashes ran along her dorsal membrane, already healing, but still visible through her transparent skin. "May I?" Lysa gestured to the empty seat. Clara nodded without looking up from her notes. "How's the wound?" "Healing. Our species regenerates quickly." Lysa settled into the chair, her form adapting to its shape. "But that's not what I want to discuss. What you did in there, it wasn't natural." "Nothing about that creature is natural," Clara replied, finally meeting Lysa's trio of eyes. "It's been engineered, trained, conditioned. But conditioning can be broken if you know the right pressure points." Tarek Vul approached next, all 4 of his eyes darting nervously between Clara and the exits. They're saying Ratok wants to schedule you for a second assessment. Says the first one was inconclusive. Clara's stylus paused over her datapad. Let me guess. A private session. No observers. How did you... Because that's what he did to Marcus. The words came out flat, emotionless. But both aliens noticed how the stylus bent slightly in Clara's grip. My brother. 2 years ago. Ratok claimed the equipment malfunctioned, that the safety protocols failed. But equipment doesn't malfunction in ways that leave claw marks, matching the Mournfang's specific pattern. The table fell silent. Around them, the mess hall's ambient noise seemed to fade. You think Ratok murdered your brother? Lysa's neural patterns flashed in alarm. I know he did. I just need to prove it. Clara pulled up a holographic display from her datapad. Look at this. Every accident during fear assessment in the past 5 years. Notice a pattern. The data points formed a clear picture. Every casualty had been either human sympathetic, from a species that had recently allied with Earth, or had publicly questioned the assessment methods. And every single one had been scheduled for a private reassessment with Commander Ratok before their death. This is... Tarek's secondary arms wrapped around himself. This is evidence of systematic murder. It's circumstantial at best, Clara corrected. Which is why I need to get him to admit it. And I think I know how... Before she could elaborate, the mess hall's main doors hissed open. Commander Ratok entered, flanked by 2 senior instructors. His compound eyes swept the room until they found Clara. Candidate Hayes. His voice carried across the suddenly silent hall. Your presence is required in Assessment Chamber 3. Clara stood slowly, deliberately placing her datapad in her pocket. For what purpose, Commander? Your initial assessment has been flagged for review. Certain irregularities require investigation. In a private session, Ratok's mandibles clicked. Standard procedure for anomalous results. Then I formally request observers, as permitted under Academy regulation. Denied. Ratok cut her off. The review board has already approved the private session. You will comply or face immediate expulsion. Clara exchanged glances with Lysa and Tarek. Then she smiled the same smile she'd worn when facing the Mournfang. Of course, Commander, lead the way. Assessment Chamber 3 was identical to the first. With one crucial difference, the observation deck's windows had been darkened to full opacity. No one would witness what happened inside. Ratok sealed the door behind them, his 4 arms moving to different control panels simultaneously. You think you're clever, human. You think because you studied Earth's pathetic remnant predators. You understand the Mournfang. I understand enough, Clara replied, positioning herself in the chamber's center. I understand it remembers Marcus. I saw the scars on its face, 3 parallel lines on the left side. The exact pattern of the defensive wounds on my brother's body. He fought back, didn't he? He marked it before you killed him. The commander's exoskeleton darkened. Your brother was weak. He failed because humans are weak. You survived by luck. Nothing more. Then prove it. Clara spread her arms wide. Release the Mournfang. But this time, don't feed it first. Don't drug it to increase aggression. Let it choose. You presume to give me orders? I'm giving you a chance to prove your point. Unless you're afraid of what might happen when the Mournfang isn't influenced by your chemical cocktails. The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire about to snap. Then Ratok's mandibles spread in what his species considered a smile. Very well. Let's see how long human courage lasts when facing death without tricks. He activated the release mechanism. The far wall's hidden panel slid open with a grinding mechanical sound. But instead of the explosive entrance from before, the Mournfang emerged slowly, almost cautiously. Its 6 eyes immediately fixed on Clara, then shifted to Ratok, then back to Clara. Hello again, Clara said softly. No drugs this time. No artificial rage. Just you and me and the truth. The creature moved into the chamber with fluid grace. its scales shifting from black to deep purple to a color that had no human name. It circled Clara once, twice, nostrils flaring. Then, it did something that made Ratak's compound eyes fracture with disbelief. It sat. 4 meters of engineered death sat like an obedient dog, its primary eyes never leaving Clara's face. "Impossible," Ratak breathed. "Not impossible," Clara said, taking a slow step toward the Mournfang. "It remembers me. Not just my scent or my appearance. It remembers my genetic markers. The same markers Marcus carried." Another step. "You see, Commander, you made a mistake when you had my brother killed. You assumed human genetics were unremarkable. But we share a specific pheromone signature when we're related invisible to most species, but not to something with the Mournfang's enhanced olfactory system." The Mournfang's head tilted, a low rumble emanating from its chest. Not a growl, something else. Something almost like recognition. "It knows I'm Marcus's sister. And it knows something else." Clara was close enough now to see her reflection in the creature's eyes. "It knows who really killed him." The rumble grew louder. The Mournfang's head turned toward Ratak, lips pulling back to reveal rows of teeth, designed for one purpose: killing. "Control it," Ratak's voice cracked, with something that might have been fear. His 4 hands scrambled for the emergency controls. "Activate the suppression protocol." "You mean the electrical shock system built into its collar?" Clara asked, conversationally. "The one I disabled when I touched it during our first encounter. My grandfather was an electrician. He taught me that any circuit can be broken if you know the right pressure point." The Mournfang stood, its full height casting shadows across the chamber. It took one step toward Ratak, then another. "Call it off." The commander's exoskeleton was practically vibrating with panic. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand perfectly." Clara's voice was cold as space. "You killed my brother because he discovered what you were doing. He found out you were using the fear assessment to eliminate threats to your authority. Species that wouldn't follow your vision of genetic superiority. Individuals who asked too many questions." "You can't prove anything." "I don't need to." Clara pulled out her datapad, showing a recording indicator that had been active since they entered the chamber. "You just confessed. This entire conversation has been transmitted to the Academy Board, the Intergalactic Council, and Earth's Diplomatic Corps." Ratak's compound eyes reflected 1,000 images of his own doom. "You manipulated me." "I learned from the best predator of all," Clara replied. "Humans don't hunt with claws or teeth. We hunt with patience and intelligence. We persistence hunt, following our prey until it exhausts itself with its own fear." The Mournfang was barely a meter from Ratak now, its breath misting in the cold air. The commander pressed himself against the wall, all 4 arms raised in a defensive posture that would be useless against the creature's strength. "Call it off," he whispered. "Please." Clara considered for a long moment. Then she made a soft clicking sound with her tongue, the same sound she'd used with frightened animals in Earth's preserves. The Mournfang paused, looked back at her. "Stand down," she said quietly. "He's not worth it." The creature held its position for 3 heartbeats. Then it turned away from Ratak with what could only be described as contempt, padding back to Clara's side. It sat again, close enough that its shoulder brushed her hip. "The difference between humans and monsters," Clara said, looking directly at Ratak, "isn't our capacity for violence. It's our choice not to use it when we've already won." The chamber doors burst open. Academy security forces flooded in, followed by 3 board members whose faces showed they'd been watching the transmitted feed. They surrounded Ratak, whose exoskeleton had gone pale with defeat. "Commander Ratak," the lead board member announced, "you are under arrest for murder, conspiracy, and violation of Academy protocols. You will be held pending full investigation." As they led him away, Ratak turned back once. The Mournfang is a killer. It will turn on you eventually. Clara's hand rested on the creature's massive head, feeling the rumble of its contentment. Maybe. But unlike you, it kills for survival, not satisfaction. That's the difference between a predator and a monster. The chamber emptied, except for Clara and the Mournfang. In the quiet that followed, she spoke to it, as she would have to any traumatized animal. I know you didn't want to kill him. Marcus, I mean, you were forced, drugged, pushed beyond your limits. It wasn't your fault. The Mournfang's response was a sound she'd never heard it make before, soft, almost mournful. It pressed its head against her hand, and in that moment, two beings who should have been natural enemies found something neither had expected understanding. The news spread through the academy like wildfire in zero gravity, chaotic, unstoppable, and consuming everything in its path. Within an hour, every candidate knew that Commander Rotok had been arrested, that the human had tamed the Mournfang, and that everything they thought they knew about the fear assessment was a lie. Clara found herself in the center of a storm she hadn't anticipated. The corridor outside her quarters was packed with candidates from dozens of species, all wanting to know how she'd done it, what it meant, whether the Mournfang would be destroyed now that its true purpose had been exposed. Give her space. Tarek Vul's massive form pushed through the crowd, his four arms creating a barrier. Despite his nervous nature, he'd appointed himself as Clara's unofficial bodyguard since the incident. She's had enough interrogation for one day. But we need to know. A Kasarian cadet clicked urgently. If the fear assessment was corrupted, how many of us failed unfairly? How many were expelled who shouldn't have been? How many died? Someone else added grimly. Clara stood in her doorway, still wearing the torn training suit from the chamber. There was something different about her now, not just the reputation, but the way she held herself, like someone who'd faced down death and found it wanting. The Academy Board is reviewing all assessments from the past 5 years, she said, her voice carrying despite its quiet tone. Anyone who was expelled under Rotok's supervision will be offered readmission. As for the Mournfang, she paused, and the crowd held its breath. It's been relocated to a temporary habitat while they decide its fate. They should destroy it, someone called out. It's a killer. It's a victim, Clara countered sharply. Engineered to be a weapon, drugged into compliance, forced to kill against its nature. Does that sound familiar to anyone here? The uncomfortable silence that followed suggested it did. Many of the candidates had been recruited or conscripted from worlds where military service was mandatory, where refusing meant exile or worse. Lissa Morin's translucent form rippled through the crowd. Clara, the board wants to see you, and they've brought someone. The board's emergency session was held in the Academy's highest tower, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of 3 different solar systems, thanks to the station's position at a dimensional fold. Clara entered to find 5 board members arranged in a semicircle, their various forms of vision all focused on her. But it was the 6th figure that made her stop. Dr. Kieran Thrace, Earth's senior xenobiologist and, more importantly to Clara, Marcus's former mentor. Dr. Thrace. Clara couldn't hide her surprise. How did you? I was already en route when your message reached Earth's diplomatic corps, the older woman replied. Her hair had gone completely white since Clara had last seen her, and new lines creased her face. I've been investigating Marcus's death independently. Your evidence confirmed what I suspected. Board member Sektal, a crystalline being whose voice resonated through harmonic frequencies, spoke first. Candidate Hayes, your actions have exposed a conspiracy that runs deeper than Commander Rotok. We've discovered he was part of a faction within the military that believes in species purity, that the Intergalactic Alliance should be segregated by genetic superiority. Supremacists, Clara said flatly. We've dealt with them on Earth. They never really go away, just find new reasons to hate. Indeed, another board member agreed. The question now is what to do with their primary tool, the Mournfang. Some argue for termination, others for rehabilitation. You've had the most extensive contact with it. What's your assessment? Clara thought of the creature's mournful sound, the way it had pressed against her hand seeking comfort. It's not just a weapon. It's intelligent, capable of memory, even emotion. It didn't want to kill. Every death was forced through drugs and conditioning. You're suggesting we spare it. I'm suggesting we give it a choice. For the first time in its existence, let it choose its own path. Dr. Thrace leaned forward. Clara, there's something else. We've decoded Marcus's final research. He didn't just discover Rotok's conspiracy. He found out where the Mournfang came from. She activated a holographic display, showing a planet Clara didn't recognize covered in dense forests and towering mountains, with 3 moons hanging in its violet sky. Duh. Severance 4. Thrace continued. A world quarantined for the past 50 years after a biological weapon test went wrong. The Mournfang isn't just from there, it's the last of its kind. Its entire species was wiped out in the disaster. It was taken as a juvenile, the sole survivor. Clara felt something cold settle in her chest. It's alone, the last of its species, forced to kill for entertainment. Not entertainment, board member Sektal corrected. Control. Fear. Rotok and his faction used it to eliminate anyone who threatened their vision of genetic hierarchy. Then we give it back what was taken, Clara said firmly. Its freedom, its dignity, its choice. Send it home to Severance 4. The quarantine is lifting next year. The biological agents have finally degraded. Let it live its remaining years where it belongs. And if it chooses violence once freed, Clara thought of every predator she'd studied, every creature that had been labeled dangerous simply for existing. Then at least it will be its choice, not ours, forced upon it. The board members exchanged glances, their various forms of nonverbal communication creating a web of silent debate. Finally, Sektal's crystalline form chimed in agreement. The proposal has merit, but someone would need to escort it, ensure the transition is successful. The journey to Severance 4 takes 3 months. I'll do it, Clara said immediately. Your training here can wait. Marcus died trying to expose this truth. The least I can do is see it through to the end. Dr. Thrace stood. I'll accompany her. My research on the Mournfang's biology could help with its rehabilitation. And we'll come too. Lysa's voice came from the doorway. She entered with Tarek close behind. Clara's shown us that humans understand something. We've forgotten that strength isn't about domination. It's about choosing not to dominate when you have the power to do so. Tarek nodded, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Besides, someone needs to document this. The galaxy should know that humans didn't conquer the Mournfang. They freed it. Board member Sektal's form shifted through several color spectrums, their species equivalent of a smile. Very well. The mission is approved. You leave in 3 days. As the meeting dispersed, Clara found herself on the observation deck, looking down at the temporary habitat where the Mournfang was being held. The creature was pacing, its 6 eyes constantly scanning for threats that weren't there anymore. It doesn't know how to be free, Dr. Thrace said, joining her. 30 years of captivity, of forced violence. Freedom might be more terrifying than any chamber. Maybe, Clara agreed. But that's the thing about freedom, it's terrifying and necessary in equal measure. Marcus would be proud of you. Clara's hand pressed against the transparasteel, watching as the Mournfang stopped pacing and looked up, somehow knowing she was there. He always said humans were proof that evolution favored adaptability over pure strength. That our superpower wasn't our bodies or our technology, but our ability to look at something everyone else feared and ask, what if we tried understanding it instead? And now you've proven him right. Not yet, Clara said. First, we need to get it home. Then we'll see if Marcus was right about something else he used to say. Which was? Clara smiled, remembering her brother's voice, his unshakable faith in the impossible. That every monster is just something that's been alone for too long. And sometimes, all it takes to change the world is showing one creature that it doesn't have to be alone anymore. Below them, the Mournfang had settled into a corner of its habitat. But its posture was different now. Not the coiled tension of a weapon waiting to strike, but something else. Something that looked almost like hope. The real work was just beginning. The transport ship Resilience was smaller than Clara had expected, a converted research vessel with reinforced cargo holds and minimal crew quarters. The Mournfang's containment unit took up most of the lower deck, a transparent aluminum cage that seemed both too large and too small for the creature within. 3 days into the journey, Clara found herself spending most of her time in the cargo hold, sitting cross-legged outside the containment unit with her datapad, documenting every behavior, every sound, every shift in the creature's scales. "You're anthropomorphizing it," Dr. Thrace said, descending the metal stairs with 2 cups of what passed for coffee in deep space. "Seeing human emotions where there might be none." "Am I?" Clara accepted the cup gratefully. Yesterday it arranged those nutrition blocks into a pattern. The same pattern every time. 3 parallel lines. Thrace's expression tightened. "Like Marcus's defensive wounds. Or like the scars on its face. It's remembering, processing, maybe even grieving." The doctor settled beside her, watching as the Mournfang traced the same 3 lines on the floor with its claw. "I've been reviewing the classified files from Ratak's personal database. The board gave me access after his arrest. Clara, there's something you should know." Clara's hand stilled on her datapad. "About Marcus." "About Marcus and 12 others. They weren't random victims. They were all part of something called the Concordance Initiative, a secret program to establish communication with species deemed incompatible with standard diplomatic protocols. Marcus never mentioned. He wouldn't have. It was beyond classified. But he and the others believed that any species, no matter how violent or alien, could be reached through patience and understanding. They were making progress with several quarantine species when Ratak found out. Clara felt the familiar cold anger settling in her bones. He killed them for trying to make peace. He killed them for threatening his worldview. If supposedly inferior species could be communicated with, if monsters could be understood, then his entire hierarchy of genetic superiority would collapse. A soft thud drew their attention. The Mournfang had pressed itself against the transparent wall, 6 eyes fixed on Clara. It made that low, mournful sound again, the one that seemed to bypass the ears and go straight to the soul. "I want to try something," Clara said, standing. "Open the containment unit." "Absolutely not," Thrace replied immediately. "The safety protocols were written by people who saw it as a weapon. We're trying to see it as something else." Clara moved to the control panel. "Besides, it's had 3 days to attack if it wanted to. It hasn't even tried." "Clara." "Doctor, you said Marcus believed any species could be reached? Let me prove he was right." Thrace hesitated, then entered her override code. "If this goes wrong..." "It won't." The containment field shimmered and dissolved. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the Mournfang took a single, cautious step forward. Then another. It emerged from the cage like something remembering how to exist in open space. Clara sat back down, deliberately making herself small, non-threatening. The creature approached slowly, its massive head lowering until it was level with hers. This close, she could see the intricate patterns in its scales, the intelligence in those 6 eyes, the way its nostrils flared as it processed her scent. "Hello," she said softly. "I know you understand more than they think you do, Marcus taught you, didn't he, before Ratak made you kill him? The Mournfang's response was to lie down, its massive body curling around Clara in a protective semicircle. Not threatening, guarding. Remarkable, Thrace breathed. It's exhibiting pack behavior. It's accepted you as... She was cut off by Lissa's voice over the intercom. Clara, Dr. Thrace, you need to see this. We've intercepted a transmission. They found Lisa and Tarek in the ship's small command center, crowded around a communications console, displaying a military encryption pattern. It's from the Academy, Tarek said, all four eyes blinking rapidly. But not from the board. Someone in the military faction is mobilizing. They're sending a strike team to intercept us. Clara leaned over the console, reading the partially decoded message. They want the Mournfang. They're calling it a strategic asset that can't be allowed to leave military control. Ratak's supporters, Thrace said grimly. They're not giving up just because he's imprisoned. How long until they reach us? Clara asked. At their current speed, 18 hours. Clara straightened, her mind racing through possibilities. Can we outrun them? Not in this ship, Lisa replied. It's built for research, not speed. Then we need a different solution. Clara turned to Tarek. You said you wanted to document this story. How good are you with broadcast equipment? What I mean, competent, but good enough to hijack the Academy's emergency broadcast system. Tarek's primary eyes widened. That's highly illegal. So is sending a strike team to steal a sentient being. Clara pulled up her datapad, fingers flying across the screen. We're going to tell the galaxy the truth. Not just about the Mournfang, but about everything. The conspiracy, the murders, the genetic supremacist movement within the military. We're going to make it impossible for them to operate in shadow. That's insane, Thrace said. They'll court-martial you. Only if they catch us. And they won't catch us if the entire galaxy is watching. Clara turned to Lissa. How many independent news feeds can you tap into with your species' neural network? Lissa's translucent form pulsed with excitement. All of them. Every single one. Then let's give them a story they'll never forget. Over the next 6 hours, they worked with desperate efficiency. Tarek rigged a broadcast array using the ship's communication system. Lisa established connections with news networks across 50 systems. Clara and Thrace compiled every piece of evidence Marcus's research. The victim files, recordings from the fear assessment, documentation of the Mournfang's intelligence and capacity for emotion. And through it all, the Mournfang watched from the doorway of the command center, as if understanding that its fate was being decided by these small, fragile beings who had chosen to see it as more than a monster. Ready, Tarek announced, his secondary arms trembling with nervous energy. Once we start broadcasting, they'll know exactly where we are. Good, Clara said. I want them to come. I want the galaxy to see them trying to steal a sentient being in broad daylight. She activated her datapad, beginning to record. Behind her, the Mournfang rose to its full height, framing her small human form with its massive presence. The contrast was striking: the ultimate predator and the seemingly helpless human, standing together in defiance. My name is Clara Hayes, she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. 2 years ago, my brother Marcus was murdered for believing that understanding was more powerful than fear. Today, I'm going to prove he was right. The creature behind me has been enslaved for 30 years, forced to kill, drugged into compliance. It's been called a monster, a weapon, a tool for control. But it's none of those things. It's a survivor, the last of its species. And it deserves what every sentient being deserves: the right to choose its own fate. She paused, looking directly into the camera. In 12 hours, a military strike team will attempt to recapture this creature, to return it to slavery. We're broadcasting our coordinates now. Come if you want. The galaxy will be watching. And they'll see what you really are: not protectors, but oppressors. Not strength, but cowardice. Because only cowards fear what they don't understand. Tarek's 4 eyes went wide. Clara, we're getting responses. Hundreds of them. Thousands. News ships are changing course to intercept. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session. And the strike team. Still coming, but now they'll have an audience. Clara turned to the Mournfang, meeting all 6 of its eyes. Ready to show the galaxy that monsters aren't born. They're made, and that they can choose to be something else. The creature's response was a sound she'd never heard before. Not a growl or a moan, but something almost like agreement, like hope. The undercurrent of revolution had begun, and it started with a human woman and the monster that chose to trust her. The strike team arrived exactly when predicted. Their assault craft emerging from hyperspace like predators, breaking through water. But they weren't alone. Surrounding them, maintaining legal observation distance, were 43 news vessels from across the galaxy, their cameras trained on the unfolding drama. Commander Kexar, Ratok's second-in-command, appeared on the main view screen. His insectoid features were composed, but Clara could see the micro-movements of his antennae that betrayed his anxiety. Transport Vessel Resilience, you are harboring stolen military property. Surrender the asset immediately, or we will board by force. Clara stepped into view of the transmission camera. The Mournfang, visible behind her, like a living shadow. Commander Kexar, I assume you're watching the news feeds. 60 billion sentients across the galaxy are witnessing this moment. Are you really going to assault a civilian research vessel on live broadcast? The creature is dangerous. The creature has a name. Clara's interruption was sharp. Its species was called the Morden. This individual's name, given by my brother before you forced it to kill him, is Remembrance. A ripple of surprise went through her own crew. She hadn't told them about finding Marcus's private journal in the encrypted files. His careful documentation of his communication attempts with the creature. That thing has no name, it's a weapon. Then, let me show you something about this weapon. Clara turned to the Mournfang to Remembrance. Do you remember Marcus Hayes? The creature's response was immediate. It moved forward, and with deliberate precision, used its claw to draw in the air a holographic interface responding to its movement. The symbol it drew was unmistakable. Earth's mathematical symbol for infinity, but broken in the middle. Marcus taught it that, Clara said, her voice carrying across the broadcast. It means friendship interrupted by force. Remembrance didn't just kill my brother, it was forced to kill its only friend. Emotional manipulation won't, Kexar began. Commander, Tarek interrupted, his 4 eyes wide with alarm. We're receiving another transmission, Priority 1, from Earth. The view screen split, and a figure appeared that made Clara's breath catch. Admiral Sarah Chen, Earth's highest-ranking military official, and more importantly, Marcus's former commanding officer. Commander Kexar. The Admiral's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I'm here to inform you that Earth has granted political asylum to the entity known as Remembrance. Any attempt to capture it will be considered an act of war against the Terran Alliance. You can't. I can and I have. Furthermore, our xenobiology team has made a discovery that changes everything. Admiral Chen's expression softened as she looked at Clara. Clara, what you're about to hear, Marcus would be proud. Dr. Thrace stepped forward, activating a holographic display. We've completed the genetic analysis. The Morden aren't naturally violent. They're empathic. Their neural structure is designed for emotional bonding, not hunting. Someone weaponized them through genetic manipulation, turning their empathy into a tool for reading prey's fear. But here's the crucial part. The doctor continued. The manipulation can be reversed, not through genetic engineering, but through emotional rehabilitation. The creature has already begun the process, simply through positive interaction with Clara. Clara felt Remembrance press against her back, a gentle touch despite its massive size. It started with Marcus, didn't it? He began teaching it that it had a choice. More than that, Admiral Chen said. Marcus discovered something in his final message, sent moments before his death. The Mordun have genetic memory. Remembrance doesn't just remember Marcus. It carries the memories of its entire species. It knows what they were before they were turned into weapons. The weight of that revelation hung in the air, behind her. Remembrance made a new sound, something between a song and a cry. Beautiful and heartbreaking in equal measure. It remembers being something else, Clara whispered. It remembers having a family, a world, a purpose beyond killing. Commander Kexar's image flickered, his composure finally cracking. Even if this is true, the creature has killed dozens. Under your command, Clara's voice rose with fury. You and Ratok and your entire supremacist faction took a species designed for empathy and turned them into weapons. You committed genocide and enslaved the survivor. And now, you want to continue the cycle because admitting the truth would mean admitting you're the real monsters. The broadcast feeds were going wild. Comments, reactions, and demands for justice flooded in from across the galaxy. The court of public opinion had reached its verdict. Stand down, Commander, Admiral Chen ordered. The Galactic Council has called for your arrest pending investigation into war crimes. Your ships are being surrounded by Council peacekeepers as we speak. On the view screen, Kexar's bridge erupted in chaos. Officers were abandoning their stations, some attempting to flee, others arguing for surrender. The commander himself stood frozen, watching his carefully constructed worldview collapse in real time. This isn't over, he managed before cutting the transmission. But it was over. The strike team's ships powered down their weapons, surrendering to the peacekeepers. The news vessels circled closer, broadcasting images of the peaceful resolution across the galaxy. Clara turned to face Remembrance fully, reaching up to place her hand on its massive head. Marcus saw who you really were. Not what they made you, but who you were meant to be. And he died, rather than let them use you as a weapon again. The creature lowered its head until its primary eyes were level with Clara's. And then it did something no one expected. It spoke. Not in words, but in harmonics, frequencies that translated directly to emotion. Gratitude, sorrow, hope. We'll take you home, Clara promised. To Severance 4. It's empty now, but it's still your world. You can choose what comes next. 3 months later, Clara stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Severance 4, watching as Remembrance explored its ancestral home. The creature had grown stronger, its scales shifting through colors that hadn't been seen in 50 years, the natural camouflage of a species that once lived in harmony with their environment. The terraforming teams say they've found ruins, Dr. Thrace reported, joining her. Cities, art, evidence of a sophisticated civilization. The Mordun weren't just sentient, they were cultured, advanced, peaceful. Until someone decided they'd make better weapons than neighbors, Clara said bitterly. The trials start next week. Kexar and 43 other conspirators. Ratok has agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. It won't bring Marcus back, or the others. No, Thrace agreed. But it might prevent the next Marcus, the next Remembrance. On the planet below, Remembrance had found something, a structure still partially standing, covered in symbols that might have been writing or art. The creature circled it slowly, almost reverently, as if remembering something from the genetic memories of its species. You know what Marcus wrote in his final message? Clara asked. He said humans weren't special because we were strong or smart, or technologically advanced. We were special because we could look at something everyone else called a monster and see a friend waiting to happen. And he was right. Clara watched as Remembrance began to carefully clear debris from the structure, revealing more symbols, more history, more proof that monsters were made, not born. He was right about more than that, she said. He wrote that humanity's greatest power wasn't our ability to destroy, but our stubborn refusal to accept that anything was beyond redemption, that everything deserved a second chance. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Clara activated her datapad to find hundreds of applications from across the galaxy, xenobiologists, historians, artists, and others who wanted to help restore Severance 4 and learn about the Mordun civilization. They want to help rebuild, she said, surprised. Marcus started something, Thrace observed. You finished it, and now others want to continue it. Down on the planet, Remembrance had uncovered what looked like a monument tall, elegant, covered in intricate carvings. The creature sat before it, that haunting harmonic sound echoing across the empty world. Not empty for long, Clara realized. Soon, this place would be filled with those who chose understanding over fear, connection over control. The Academy wants you back, Thrace mentioned. Not as a student, as an instructor. They're creating a new program, Interspecies Empathy and Communication. They want you to lead it. Clara considered this, then smiled. Tell them yes, but I have a condition. The first lesson will be a field trip. Here, every student needs to see what happens when we choose fear over understanding, and what's possible when we choose differently. As the sun set over Severance 4, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Remembrance looked up at the orbital station. Even across the vast distance, Clara felt the connection, not psychic, not mystical, but something fundamentally human. The ability to see past the surface to the soul beneath. We're not the strongest species, Clara said, echoing her brother's words. We're not the smartest or the most advanced, but we might be the most stubborn when it comes to hope. And sometimes, that's the most dangerous power of all. The news feeds were already broadcasting the images, the last of the Mordun, home at last, free to choose its own path. And beside it, in spirit if not in body, a human woman who had looked at a monster and chosen to see a friend. The galaxy would never be the same. In the Academy archives, a new entry was added to the official record. The Fear Assessment Protocol has been permanently discontinued. In its place, the Hayes Protocol has been established, named for Clara and Marcus Hayes. This protocol states that first contact with any species, regardless of apparent hostility, must begin with an attempt at understanding. Fear is no longer our first response. It is our last resort. This is the legacy of Earth. This is the power of humanity. Not our weapons or our technology, but our relentless, impossible, universe-changing belief that everything deserves a chance to be more than what it was made to be. We are humans. We persist. We endure. And we choose hope, even when hope seems impossible. Especially then,